Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. You recently had dinner with Trump, and we heard a lot about that dinner, but can you take us inside and tell us a little bit how that played out?
Well, we had an invitation to Chuck Schumer and I, Leader Schumer, very proud of the New York Yankees today.
Yes.
Pretty exciting. The president invited us to dinner. Part of what we wanted to say to him is we have some challenges with some of the things you've done in terms of the Affordable Care Act, walking away from the Paris Agreement.
DACA was one of the reasons.
Well, we'll get to DACA, but you know, we had a list of concerns that we were disappointed in the president's actions on them, and said we need a confidence builder. We need a threshold we have to cross together where we have our shared values. And for us, that is DACA, because it's on a very short fuse from what he had done. He didn't have to do that. That was really heartbreaking that he did what he did. You could say to Congress, pass a law, but not, I'm putting a timetable on it. So we said to the president, this is our threshold. If we can have agreement on this and confidence, then we can do other things. But if we don't have that confidence, it'd be very hard to go to other things. The president said, you know, he supported the DREAM Act. Now, we didn't have agreement yet on the...
But he said he supported the DREAM Act in that meeting.
Yes, and in the previous meeting, he said if it came to his desk, he would sign it.
But then he changed it the next day, I think, or a week later. He said there was no deal. So,
well, there was no deal on there was never a deal. The only agreement was he would support the DREAM Act. We would work with him on some border issues. We have a responsibility to protect our border. We don't have a responsibility to turn on have the Dreamers start a reign of terror in our country by their going after their families and other people. But this is I mean, every president we have had, Ronald Reagan was great. I mean, I'm talking recent history. Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, our Democratic presidents for sure, George W. Bush, have always been very respectful of what immigration means to our country. This is the first president who's made this departure, and in a very negative way. And it's unfortunate. But nonetheless, he said he supports the Dreamers. I think he supports the Dreamers because the American people support the Dreamers.
Yes.
It's a beautiful, lovely thing. Not because of us, but because of who the Dreamers are.
Yes.
So, you know, you can only, shall we say, I have confidence that the president would not walk away from his support for the Dreamers.
Really?
Now, one thing that was interesting at is we said, well, if we can come to this place and we prove that it happens, then we can talk about other subjects. Well, so they would ask me a question I was answering, and some of the cabinet members who were at the table, I was the only woman at the table, and that's why I have to stay there to be the one of the top women, top people at the table. But anyway, they asked a question, I was responding, and they kept saying, well, why aren't we talking about this? And why aren't I said, does anybody listen when a woman speaks around here?
I remember that. I remember that.
good luck with that.
But the president was listening. I have to give him credit for that.
Oh. But there's a fracture in your party in the same way that there's a fracture in mine. And there were a lot of people like Tim Ryan that were calling for you to step down and to make room for new blood. And I don't think it's necessarily about gender. I think it's about leadership. Look at the Bernie supporters versus Hillary supporters. How do you respond to that?
Well, let me, with all due respect, disagree with you. There is not a fracture in our party similar to what's happening in the Republican Party. That is not the case.
With all due respect, that's part of your problem.
It's always been a dynamic party. It is not a rubber stamp party. It's always been a dynamic party, and that's the vitality of it. And you can name one or two people who want me to step down. I can name you an overwhelming number of people in my caucus. Now, I was ready to go home if Hillary won, and to have a woman at the top of the table to protecting the Affordable Care Act, which is, for me, similar to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act. I had an important role in passing that. I felt a responsibility to protect it, and so I'm here to do that. But I feel very confident in what I'm doing and the support that I have. But it is, please don't think that it is anything like the fracture that is in the Republican Party. We have the...
hasn't stopped us from winning, though. I mean, President Trump is in the White House, so there's a breakdown someplace.
Well, I think this is our turn. This is the first time since 2006 when we won the Congress, and I was the leader at the time. This is the first time that House Congressional, and it'd be Chuck and I, then it was Harry Reid and I, that we are the ones who are communicating with the American people on this. We have a better deal, better jobs, better pay, better future for the American people. We feel comfortable with that, but we have to get the message across. It's one thing to have a message. It's another thing to connect.
That's the word.
To connect.
Yeah. A big thank you to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. We'll be right back.